So we've pulled some boxes, and it'll be time to begin making a villain, or a villain, if you prefer. You posted a rough draft. All right, Jacob. I can't take a look at it right now, but I can certainly I can glance through it if you're searching for feedback. Um, depending, there are myself or others could give you blunt feedback. Very, well, this phrasing doesn't work here. You should consider this word. So if anything comes across as rude, you can let me or Ahmad know. But because of the feedback we hope to offer, whether it's our art mentors or others offering art critique or writers offering writing critique, if you are seeking help in improving your draft, then we can offer suggestions and such. But please don't take it as any sort of a personal attack, because we're all in this together. And I'll tell you what, if you all read, because I turned my first campaign that I've ever ran, that was my own, my homebrew, campaign 1. I turned that into a manuscript that you put down the novel size would be about a 300-page novel. And if you want some very interesting, common, just errors in formatting, in, weird verbiage, just inefficient ways to get a story across, beep, 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 that's this guy. Now, I hope I have since grown. I'm sure I make mistakes because I'm a human being like anyone else. The best kind of villain is one you least expected. The good you were fighting for turned out to actually be a doppelganger, the very evil you were trying to defeat. Having a little bit of a twist can be very fruitful for a villain. BRB, I have to take your son to school. All right, Sarah, yeah. Hey, we'll be here. We're going to be making a villain here. Now, we do have a worksheet that is going to give us a couple prompts, similar to us going through and creating a random character out of the player's handbook through some roles. We can use some roles here as a prompt in order to develop a villain. And so if you all have your Dungeon Master's Guide with you, crack it open. We're going to start on page 74. Whoop, I put 75. Haha. Okay. Not that we can't sit down ourselves and create something out of whole cloth. We can do that. I believe in us. I believe, with the work we put into this setting last week and us kind of finishing it up this week, that we can do that. For this villain, I want to pull some random prompts together and challenge ourselves to think about the character as he, she, or it exists. And then we can translate that into the broader world that we have, or at least the region that we've started to create. And if you do homebrewing at home, ironically, you don't need a Dungeon Master Guide to have you roll everything. But if you find yourself in need of inspiration, if it's one part of a character or all of it, it's here. And you know what? This isn't even just good advice for fantasy or D&D specifically. I mean, these tables and storytelling is generic enough. You can use it for a sci-fi story if you really want. All right, so let's go through this. Man, my mustache is really tickling tonight here. All right, our adventure villain. Let's roll a 20-sided die and figure out where here we stand. 11. 11 is a humanoid conqueror. The objective or the scheme is going to be on page 94. Now, just like with the character creation, I've taken the content in the book and I may have rearranged it around for making a good development cycle in a character. And as you see, we just skipped 20 pages of content. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening in those 20 pages and things that could be relevant to you. For this exercise, I want to flip us around to what I'm considering the next step to be. It could be different for you, or you might skip it, or you might just go down the line, page by page, and consider the different charts and options. So the villain scheme, I'm going to roll a d8 for here. And then within each, I'm going to roll the appropriate die. So we rolled a 3. This is a magic scheme. And specifically, magic is on a d6. We rolled 2. Win a contest. Oh, I'm sorry. That's influence. 2 is build a construct or a magical device. Okay. Now we go to page 95. What are the villain's methods for trying to achieve this goal? We're going to roll a d20 and then the appropriate die within it. 16. Stalking. That one's just straight up. And the villain's weakness is on a d8. 3. The villain is weakened in the presence of a particular artifact. Going off of what we were talking about and discovering through our party that we created last week, I think there's a lot of opportunity here to find an artifact. In fact, our archaeologist may have already done so in the form of the medallion. And where stalking, I'm sorry, pardon me, where stalking could be involved is, while this is the villain of the campaign, there might be places where she or he can't get to because it's, the villain is sealed out, or there's a ward that the PCs have to pop first before this other, antechamber can be accessed. A lawful good villain? We'll see, Dark Wolf. Jacob is offering Humanoid Conqueror, a sorcerer tainted by the spawn of Juiblex, cult of mages bent on collecting power and spreading their faith in the power of Juiblex, god of corruption. You're not too far from things, Jacob. When we built the region that this adventure will take place in, and we did so by extracting information from the 4 PCs that we constructed through random elements, the adventure seems to be leaning in a resurrection or a bringing back of a demon who is currently the pact holder over some cultists, some warlocks that historically had caused trouble in the area, but everyone got together and kind of kicked him out. Well, now someone has come back and is trying to reactivate the temple and to manifest this demon. And I'll tell you, the random prompts that we have generated up here, these work very well for the information we gleaned from the random prompts from the characters. And when that happens, I absolutely love that kind of, what to call it? I mean, we could say coincidence, but just the way that it turns out. Now, we didn't really say, is this a demon? Is it Yinagu, the demon god of gnolls? Is this Lolth? It could very well be. This could be a Juiblex. Jewy? Like Chewy? Juiblex? I mean, I imagine that, for being an ooze god, kind of an ooze demon, it's probably very chewy. Water's purifying, could be holy water. Yeah, Jacob, it Oh, serendipity is a good one, TJ. Yeah. Don't forget, lawful good is as far away from chaotic good as chaotic evil. Now we go back to page 89, and we do so because we have our villainous concepts. But very rarely does a villain wake up and say, "Yes, I'm evil, and I'm going to do evil things today. Oh, yes, I'm going to go burn down the orphanage, and I'm going to kick a cat in the streets, and I'm going to go kidnap a princess and force her to marry me." That doesn't happen often where you get an obviously evil villain who thinks that they're evil and does evil things for the sake of being evil. Even if they're doing evil things, they think that they're doing the right thing and for good reasons. I'm willing to step up and do what other people aren't. I don't see anyone else willing to sacrifice, everything they have to try and save the village. Meanwhile, it's like a cult sacrifice or something, but it'll appease the angry god instead of another method. And so I want to add personality. I want to add some nuance to our villain, aside from just knowing that he's kind of a creeper. He's a stalker, and he wants to make this construct, which is probably something like to open a gateway, so that his banished his banished patron can remanifest back through this temple that everyone thought had been overgrown and destroyed by the archfey patron that lived in the area. Shlomo is dabbing on us, saying Thanos is neutral good. Change my mind. Do any of you want to take up Shlomo on that challenge? This villain could be a politician, so to others he seems good, but he's actually the owner of a secret cult. That is possible, Jacob, and you know what? We'll see where this... Keep that in mind, because I don't mind if the demon is our ooze goddess here. Astraeus, welcome! His its occupation and history. In one sentence, describe the NPC's occupation and provide a brief historical note. All right, we're going to come back to this one because I want to learn a little bit more through the roles about personality, about some features. And you know what? If we don't, it could end up being that someone living in the area, is a mayor of a local town, by day is a beloved public figure, by night is dragging a poor farmer's daughter off to the temple to be sacrificed for the glory of the ooze, or something along those lines. We have an Ivan Ooze character. All right, for the appearance, let's roll a d20. We rolled a 4. Formal, clean clothes. Well, that could... Formal, clean clothes. That could confirm this is as a suspicion. Abilities. I'm going to roll 2d6. First is the high ability, and the second is going to be the low ability. 5 and 3. High wisdom, low constitution. So something has happened, right? Is gaining this insight, gaining this this awareness of the world in a way, but perhaps at the cost of its body, his, hers, its body. There, if you want, I guess if we want to be really neutral. With this prompt, we're providing more story building opportunity. Right, we're building a skeleton and we're dabbing on muscle through clay or whatever. We're dabbing on more and more substance onto this skeletal frame. Jacob, okay, you're throwing out some ideas. Jedi What he does is evil regardless of what he thinks. Traded some of their natural health for power. That could be. Artificially shortened your life. I'm willing to sell 30 years off the end of my life for power today. A demon might take you up on that. High wisdom screams not a crazy plan to me. Reading minds, telepathy. This guy's a magic user, but also a mastermind. He's got to have communication with his lackeys without normal eyes noticing. Most likely a magical character. Hey, Demon Lord Nem. This could be, if we're going warlock. I mean, it could be cleric. We'll see. We'll see. A talent. What is something our villain does? 7. Great at solving puzzles. You know what that means, boys and girls? It means our dungeon is probably going to have a lot of puzzles. Because the person who's currently occupying it doesn't have a problem with puzzles. A cleric that went too far in his crusade for good, so just sort of like circled back around and went cray-cray. Yeah, see? So Nem knows. All right, a mannerism. How does this villain conduct him or herself? Let's roll a d20. A 3. Particularly low or high voice. So I'm going to roll the d20 again, and we'll just go odds. Oh, I guess we'll go highs or lows. 1 to 10 is low. 11 to 20 is high. 2. Mannerism. Particularly low voice. When I speak, I do so with the voice of my master, who dwells within me, giving me power and guidance in the great plan. You know, we want to deal with oozes. What if there's actually like a little ooze, that, like a little blob that's riding inside his chest cavity and is even giving him a little bit of a gurgly voice? Maybe that's what's making it rumble so low. You know, like his lungs are almost filled with this stuff, and so it could be the blob talking. Interaction. Unfortunately, I don't have a Jeremy Irons voice. That would be kind of cool. Or a Tim Curry, perhaps. Interactions with others. Let's roll a d12. 5. Curious. When I was blessed with the Master's gift, I was also tasked to explore this world and see what there was worth claiming, influencing, perhaps to see what there was worth manifesting for. And so far, our curiosity has shown us many great things. Jacob, a wizard politician, his social upbringing with cultist dark past, gained abnormal power and very good smarts, able to make puzzles well, runs a secret cult of corruption behind the scenes, soft-spoken and well-mannered in public, but takes on the Emperor Palpatine approach behind the scenes with a voice. Follows our companions with curiosity, following their careful rise, perhaps due to a premonition given to him by the god he follows, but doesn't understand fully. Useful knowledge. This is a fill in the blank ourselves, and so for this one we can leave this blank as these are things like campaign details. These are the monologue plot points, things along those lines that we don't have available because we're building the character for the character first, and then we'll inset the character to the story. Her ideal. I'm going to roll 2d6, And the first is going to determine 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the second will determine the line within that 6. 6 and 6. So this is going to be self-knowledge. That is the ideal. If this is a cultist of some variety that is trying to bring this demon back into the world, it could be, is it that kind of forbidden fruit temptation? You're told, don't eat this thing. You're gonna regret it. I'm gonna have to kick you out because you're gonna know too much. And sure enough, you bite into it, you gain knowledge of the world, but now you have to live in it, and you can't just live in this nice protected garden. It could be that by instilling, an aspect of the god in others, it opens their minds and their eyes, and so that is providing self-knowledge, like you realize who you are, what you are, and it gives you a sense of purpose and even pride. Something to think about. Lawful good, by the way, says Shlomo. The character's bond, the villain's bond. 6. Drawn to a special place. Whew, this is working out really well. I mean, not that this guide knows what we did last week or the circumstances to why we're making a villain. But is this not turning out really, really well? You just got yelled. What do you mean, Nem? And lastly, what is our flaw or secret? I mean, we have our weakness, right? Our specific villain weakness. But what is a character flaw? We are all flawed characters. IRL and in-game. And if you don't think you are, then that's your flaw. Let's roll a d12. 10. A secret crime or misdeed. Oh, you know what this could end up being then? So Jacob, with you throwing these ideas out, with this, if you are, there's nothing saying that he couldn't be a local politician, even off the random prompts. If he was a local mayor or, the head of the farmers union or someone influential, this character could have broken the law and flaw IRL, too good for this world, says Shlomo. So what he could have done is maybe he went to the abandoned temple, right? All the local people say, don't go there. It's off limits. So many people gave up their lives to try and seal it. You don't want to go in there because who knows? At worst, it's a haven for bandits. Because it's been abandoned so long. But there could be worse given the nature. And this person went there, breaking the law of the land, to which he was, sworn to uphold, as a sheriff, as a religious leader, as a mayor, as whatever, a merchant, like a head merchant in some way. In so doing, perhaps off of this self-knowledge, wanting to know, it's that curiosity, right? Because he is a curious person, was drawn there, breaking the own law of the land. This is perhaps where a little bit of residue of the demon sort of awakens and sort of face-huggers him. And now, with this part of Juiblex, this ooze demon, implanted inside of him, he is now going behind the scenes and trying to reawaken the cult and to reawaken this temple. And so we have someone who, might not have been a bad person before, and as a person may still not be bad, but has this influence inside of him or her. We haven't decided that yet. And has this element inside of him or her to then continue those duties while collecting information and awakening the cult in the area again, so that once more it's time for the Archfey to gather his or her own warlocks, which one of the characters was an Archfey warlock, and gather everyone together to try and shut down this temple before it goes out and it corrupts the land again. And so this Archfey is saying, NIMBY, not in my backyard. They're a DM that I love to push their buttons, and she yelled at me for being funny. For being a funny pain in the side. Got it, Nem. Well, I'm glad you're happy. Jacob says the ooze template will be posted on your Discord table. Oh, all right. Well, yeah, so we can reference that stuff. Now, I'm not going to go through and build the character mechanically, at least not yet or not tonight. What I want to do is I want to tell a tale, and I want us to use these random prompts to wiggle it into what have we created so far? How can we add organic elements to the story that we've been building? And I think that we've done a very good job. Now, as for who this person is, high whiz, low con, you know what, we can open up in a way. We don't even have to make a full character sheet. But we can take elements, including alignment, everyone, if you want to roll for alignment. But if we just want some basics, we could even just come down here to and roll the basic race, background, and class for the 3 legs of the stool that the character sits on. Oh, Jacob, hey, Jacob, you have a new emote you can use, and tonight, hey, Delcorin, thank you. Tonight is the first night that these emotes are live, so thank you, and I hope that you enjoy it. Hello, Delcorin. Same goes to you as a subscriber. You have a fresh emote, hot off the digital press. There we go. And so we'll see what we get here. We'll roll race on a D10. Because it did say humanoid. 10. All right, so that's a reroll because there's 9 races. 1. A dwarf. Odds are evens. Evens. A hill dwarf. All right, so there's not expressed in the area. There's not necessarily dwarves that live there, but we did say that dwarves came down in order to. Oh gosh, this actually works out really well. There are dwarves that came down to help with this war to shut down this fiend temple, and so maybe he stayed behind with a couple other dwarves in order to help monitor the place or to assess it, to help build this other city that we put on the map. That's the next town over, and so this works very well. All right, so we have a hill dwarf. We'll go 50-50. Or actually, we'll use this. We'll use the percentile. Female, male, or a multi-class on a percentile die. Almost a multi-class. So we have a male hill dwarf. If I get lawful good, then this was definitely meant to be. 2 percentiles. 9287. That is actually going to be chaotic evil. He may be chaotic evil now. Doesn't mean he can't be methodical, by the way. So maybe it brought out these elements in him after he got face-huggered by the ooze. The background, I'm going to generate a 13-sided die. 13 in urchin. Oh. So he is used to getting around, you know, tight and cramped spaces. So something happened, and he grew up abandoned on the streets of a city. And maybe this is what made him curious and sort of, you know, stoked his resolve. Now, there's no special other backgrounds. An urchin is an urchin. And, you know, we could fill in, you know, the parents died, parents abandoned him, you know, and how long ago did this happen? He may have been an urchin and remember those days with his skills, but, you know, how old? And we could continue into that. Now, let's roll a D12, this nice big golden D12, and find out what his class is. And wouldn't that be something if it... I mean, it doesn't have to stereotypically fit high wisdom, low con, but we'll see what happens. 2, a bard. Interesting. Which bard? Odds, College of Law. Someone who's curious and seeking knowledge? Oh my. Who grew up as an urchin. And is how old is our villain? I rolled a 44, so that's going to make him an adult. That's column 3. And dwarf intersects here between 101 and 150. So we're going to roll a D50. And that is 10. So he is only 110 years old. Hey, Plunder, welcome. Kind of. So we have someone who grew up on the streets. Maybe the parents died, you know, fighting the ancient evil, was left behind, has grown up in the area since, is now an adult at 110. And in this case, because we don't have something specific through the background, such as, you know, such as a folk hero or a soldier, as an urchin, we could have a politician here. And especially as a bard, or if not, then, you know, we could go the vizier route. You know, he works for the mayor or whatever authority. He works as an investigator in some sort of a law enforcement department in the area. So this can work out really well. You know, rags to riches, and then, you know, he's upholding the law. You know, maybe his parents were war heroes, and so he kind of, you know, wrote on that as well. But you know, people didn't really know that until something happened, and then he was, you know, he grew up and people know him as such, and he ended up going into the ancient temple, got a blob of ooze on his face, and is now host to an aspect of Juiblex, which is now using him as a manifestation to try and bring back, through cult activity, a gateway to return. And the party are the ones who are going to be sent out in order to stop this from happening. Jacob says he started off as an urchin, grew to find he had magical power, and went to the Wizards College to study, dabbled in a cult because of those studies, and as he grew to be influential, he gave himself, so you think he gave himself? Sorry, Nem, but Juiblex is my favorite demon lord. And, I'm sorry, I missed the notification, I think, for the follow. The Lego Jello, or Legogalo, sounds like the Logalog from Redwall. Thank you very much for that follow. I hope you're enjoying it. And Jacob, for your first evening here in our workshop, I think you've gotten a good taste of who we are and what we do and how we challenge ourselves to think and adapt and improvise. And I really hope, I mean, I'm suspecting with the follow and the subscription that you like what we do here. And this is a very good lesson in the type of storytelling that we want it to be meaningful. We want it to be meaningful despite using random prompts, because we're trying to build something that's authentic one step at a time, and we're drawing on our mix of experiences and suggestions. Occultists are always willing to give themselves in worship for more power and knowledge. Trust a Flump is offended. Juiblex is best ooze. I guess Gonadar is okay, says Trust a Flump. I'm dishing these ideas out at a machine gun pace, and I hope that you're enjoying. Like, it's a good challenge for you too, Jacob. Oh, and Ivalon's getting in on Tharizdun. Oh my, or if you prefer Tharizdun. Been a long day. Well, you know what, Plunderloot? Pull up a chair, listen to us in the background if you want, and you know, if you're whatever you're doing something, or if you want this to be your sole focus, relax. You know, open up your brain a little bit with us. We're not talking about, you know, we popped an intellect devour, so if you want to open up your skull, I'm sure I could find a host for it. Such a good Campania villain. Plunderloot likes Mephistopheles. Fun little devil right there. Jedi watches all these names fly right over his head. Yeah. Well, Jedi, there's a lot of fun things to research for you. Yeah, open up your brain with us. It's not brain surgery. It's... Now, if Norton the Knoll was here, obviously he'd say that Yinagu is best. Yinagu is best boy. Oh yeah, and you had the Game of Thrones whiskey. I saw that, Plunderloot. And so Jacob, what we can see by this, yes, we've created a villain because we know it's going to be the bad guy, right? It's going to be the BBEG. Well, it's probably not going to be the BBEG, but this is going to be one of the big bad evil guys of the adventure. And what we've done isn't just make a stat block of a bad guy that has, you know, evil necromancy powers or whatever. Probably won't have I mean, by the way, bards can be necromancers in 5th ed. Now, how strong a definition? Bards will not be necromancers akin to clerics. Paladins can be necromancers, by the way. They may not be the best at raising the dead, but you want to talk about leading an undead army? Oathbreaker paladins are excellent necromancers. And then, of course, you have wizards and clerics, and bards are in there, too. So we haven't necessarily talked about stats, and that's fine. In fact, this was a good quote that I got from Derek. He summed up a point that I was going on about, but I didn't have a, you know, I didn't have a succinct way of saying it. And if I'm wrong, if someone else told me it, then correct me. But I believe this was Derek who said, once you give Cthulhu a hit point bar, you've lost the point. Right? You've lost the concept of what it means. So in this conception phase of a villain, I don't want to go and, you know, what weapon is he using? I don't want to talk about hit points. Like, he's going to be weaker of body, and that's fine, because he's going to be more powerful in other ways. But, you know, who is this character? Where did he come from? Why does he exist? If we can answer these questions, we are programming ourselves as DMs to be better AIs for this NPC. Whether he's playing goody-good as whatever role he is taking in a village or a town or whatever, or he is being the BBEG and giving his monologue plan On the dais to his master, or yeah, it's a he. We determine it's a he. On the dais to his master, and the master stroke of everything pulling together. Because we know our villain, we understand where he comes from, and even in this case, our player characters probably know him as well. I voted for that guy, or oh yeah, I see him on the streets. He buys the old widow an apple every Monday. Come election time, very genial guy, isn't really, doesn't ruffle feathers. If we want to make it a mayor instead of a sheriff or whatever else, like the head librarian of the lore of the library of the area, very genial, kisses hands and shakes babies. All right, he's chaotic evil, right? By the way, don't shake babies. And so we now understand our villain. Our villain isn't just someone dressed in a smart black suit with an oversized top hat and a pencil thin mustache, tying maidens to railroad tracks to threaten to marry them if they don't get a big burlap sack of money with a big green money symbol on the side. We have a character who is driving the plot, who stalks, who's been there, by the way, probably in ooze form, who stalks, who's been there the whole time. Someone even who's tragic. A tragic villain. Someone who grew up on the streets, so had a rough childhood, entered young adulthood and adulthood, worked hard, earned money, earned a reputation, and finally achieved something great. Now that he has power, he did make that decision, because he's a curious person, to go to the temple that you're not allowed to go to by law. And what happens? He gets face-huggered by a little ooze of Juiblex, becomes a host, starts a cult, and now people are being sacrificed. The woods that grew over to try and purify this old temple are now corrupted and dripping or dying. The water supply is getting really weird. A lot of stuff is happening as this liminality with this fiend grows closer and closer every day that this character is able to work behind the scenes. And because of his access, he can pick and choose. It's not just going to be farmers' daughters. I mean, some could very well be. That's where you start to make sure. But then suddenly we notice that through clues that the party can put together, he likes puzzles. In fact, he could even be leaving a puzzle. Oh my gosh. I'm on a soapbox, everyone, by the way. I'm sorry. I'll look at chat in a second. He could be trying to fight against this, realizing what he's doing to the people that he swore to protect and love, and that, saw him grow up from the streets now here. And so this host, like he's hosting this demon aspect. He could be leaving clues behind that perhaps the party is like, these are serial killer clues. These are bad guy clues. Meanwhile, it's actually like a cry for help. So he's leaving a puzzle behind, and that could lead to the weakness, right? Maybe he shares the thoughts with this ooze that's like inside him, piloting him. And, people are sacrificed and things disappear, but there's always a clue, always a puzzle to put together. And this demon doesn't really mind or care or doesn't know. And so he's trying to be subversive to the host. And it's so over the course of this adventure, we could be piecing together this puzzle in order to find the weakness and exploit it to put him down. And you know what? It might come down to that. It might say we can't separate the host from the parasite. We're going to have to kill him. But we're going to feel terrible. It'll be a moral quandary. By the way, moral quandaries are the best last bosses of an adventure. Here we go. Someone who was innocent, worked hard. You know what? And he made this one mistake. But you know what this one mistake did? Cost 50 people their lives. Farmers' daughters. The the sons of merchants, the foreigners who are visiting these lands, get abducted and sacrificed on the altar to Juiblex. So one little mistake, and so now we're telling a bit of a moral tale as well with this. And we have a villain that does villainous things for villainous reasons, but could be a tragic villain. And the worst part is, you know, the redemption has already occurred in so much that this person is able to leave this puzzle, these clues behind, which means that redemption isn't an option at the end, and you got to make that hard decision. You got to take Old Yeller out behind the woodshed, my friends. I'm sorry. It's got to happen, though. Because if you don't kill your friend, he's going to kill you. Or everyone else that you know. Everything is going to get destroyed. Do you have the gumption as a player character in this scenario to go to your friend and perhaps in that moment where he's lucid again, like you've kind of beaten the ooze, like you've kind of beaten him up, is dying, like you can even see like the ooze like clinging to his lungs and his heart, and you realize there's not separating the two, and he looks up at you and just gives you that nod, and you know in that moment his eyes aren't clouded by goo, by Juiblex's influence. You know, he doesn't have these cataracts of ooze or jelly. His tears are real tears, not gelatinous tears. His eyes are clear. And in his voice, and his real voice, not the one that's grasped around by this the tendrils of this ooze inside him, this aspect of a fiend, he looks at you and just gives you a nod. You don't even need to say anything else. Will you bring the hammer down on him? Will you end this as a player character? After all is said and done. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go. I've missed so much in chat. I'm sorry, everyone. Yeah, Trust the Fault, there's a lot of lore, but everyone kind of has their own take on these demonic aspects. So yeah, Jedi, I mean, you could look it up and you could find inspiration, but ultimately, your version of a demon's going to be different than someone else's. I gave you permission to use my story, Ethereal Intervention, I posted in your chat. Well, thank you, Jacob. Gary Gygax said that? Gotcha, alright. I'm sure Derek said it too, but in D&D 0 edition, they released a supplement with all the deities statted out, and he felt it was a bad idea because then people just wanted to kill them. Yes, good lesson, Ivalon. Can't stat up a god, an avatar of a god, maybe, but not a god, says Trust the Flump. Otherwise, what is a god? Depending on the setting, really, in Forgotten Realms, you can kill gods sometimes. And Trust the Flump was like, Kill Bartholomew 2020. Oh my gosh, a plan is in motion. You better watch out, Trust the Flump. Ivalon's gonna get some folks together, apparently. Yeah, Ivalon, I would love to see you back on D&D time. Let's see. Excited to have you back. I would be as well. And I am glad you're recovered, Ivalon. It's great seeing you back here. TJ says, I'm getting a Riddler vibe here. He leaves clues because he wants to be found, wants to prove his intelligence. TJ, I think that can work. Especially as a bard, right? You're a person of many talents, so you can leave all sorts of clues. Well, luckily, her background is on her bio. Okay, so Ivalon and Trust the Flump are talking about D&D time characters. So this guy could be chaotic neutral, not just chaotic good or evil. Inspirational quotes. He may not be doing it consciously. He might be leaving clues because his subconscious is fighting back against the parasite. I like it, TJ. I like it. And then the purifying artifact comes into play. There could be in some way, Jacob, because Estrella may be a bad. Oh yeah, that's your fighter character. Ah, that wink, Ivalon, that wink. Jacob, oh no, Jacob, don't tear up. I hope I didn't make you. I hope I didn't make you weep. Step aside, I'll do it, says Jedi, and splat. The hammer drops, and Old Yeller is not gonna be a threat to the homestead anymore. Is chaotic neutral, so slaughters him anyways and takes the library for himself, says Jacob. Do you feel that we made a compelling villain? You know, with what now? Obviously, as a PC, you're not going to know all this straight up. You will know the NPC, and you know what? Over the course of the adventure, you know, we're going to presume your character has knowledge of this person, but over the course of the adventure, you know, you're going to find clues that are going to start, you know, pointing to things and narrowing things down, and you know, you could even twist that dagger by, you know, there's a public celebration. It's you know, it's Little Frontiersman Day, and or like Little Settlers Day or something. And so you have this important character comes out. You know, this is a holiday where all the kids get the toys, and you know, in this lucid, or at least presuming like this presumed state. I mean, gathering intel for the Fiend, but you know, you see this character interact with kids, and you pats them on the head and gives them toys. You know, food is everywhere, and nothing creepy or bad is happening. And yet, who knows? That could be simply a scouting method that this Juiblex implant is using to determine, well, you know who's going to get abducted tonight? Who's been a bad boy or girl? And your PCs could even be inadvertently exposed to that. You know, where, you know, we have kind of a Santa figure, right? He's on stage as like the mayor of town, and so he hands this stuff out. And, you know, the PCs are there for the feast in the public square. You know, kind of being important themselves. They're PCs. They might be in the front row. Little kid looks all shy, comes up, you know, and he asks, you know, have you been, well, in the low voice, like, have you been a good girl this year before Little Frontiers Day or Little Settlers Day? And the parents standing off to the side and kind of, you know, giving that, tell him. And she starts crying on the stage, like, no, I was really bad. And, you know, getting into this, like, Chunk in Goonies confessing everything to the Fratellis with his hands almost ready to be in a blender. I mean, her hand's not in a blender, but you get what I'm saying here. Where she's crying and snot's coming out. She's like, I pulled my brother's hair, and I stole a copper piece out of the collection plate at the local temple, and she's like going on this list. And then you know what happens that night? She's the one abducted, because all this Juiblex character knows is that she's a bad girl who's gonna miss her, or she's already she's open to evil anyway. And the PCs are like, we were there. We were there. Could we have stopped this? Who could have predicted what happened? Yeah. Or even if this happens very early on in an introduction to the adventure, like level 1, level 2, right? You have your kid adventure, your level 0 or whatever. You know, is disappeared, kids brought back from cultists by the party. But what if she was given one of these parasites? She was face hugged by a little ooze as well. And so the little girl comes back, but she's not like a master ooze. She's just sort of like a Plagas from Resident Evil 4 and 5 technically. And 6 technically? We'll say 4. And once again, you want to rip the heart out of your characters. She turns savage, and when they try and restrain her, something happens. You know, she's a little kid. She, like, her body has 1 hit point, but John Carpenter's The Thing inside her has more. You know, they have to try and stop her because she's like grown, like, I don't know, super claws, and her jaw can distend, and she's all kind of like, you know, loosey-goosey, all wiggly. You know, obviously not natural. Something happened to this kid, but is it still a kid? And you can use that as foreshadowing for the villain later. Would your PC have that gumption if this kid got infected and sort of turned feral? And I don't say this to be light. And I also don't say this to be, you know, for anyone who's lost, you know, a young one, a sibling, or, you know, whatever. I'm not trying to hurt feelings or bring back bad stuff. In the context of a story, could that happen? So as this little girl, quote unquote, is there, writhing, disjointed, jaw distended, eyes like on stalks, like all kind of creepy stuff that this ooze implant is manipulating, like corrupting her body. And you realize that was the repentant little girl that just, whatever, a week before was crying to the mayor about being a bad girl. And all she wanted to do was say sorry, which she did it on stage, but... Man, you could get into this, can't you? I did a level 1 game where we got infinite magic missile wands with a chance for random effects. Roll a d1000. My buddy blew a door open and a random goat rammed him through the smoke of the door. Oh my gosh, surprise. My PCs would try to train her into a warped attack dog type deal. Oh my. Our objective was to clear a dungeon as purely fun, hectic play happened. And you know what? Sometimes just those kick in the door dungeon crawls, you know, just having fun, raw output, just, yeah, it's cathartic, Jacob. All right. So, I think we have a great idea for a villain. I think this villain, in ways, is relatable and can really make our players squirm in their seats. We don't just have a lull, I'm an evil bard, I'm going to cast magic at you, and, you know, I'm going to be like Kefka 2.0, you know, which Kefka's a potent villain because Kefka is one of those really odd, I am evil. I'm just going to kill whoever I don't like and manipulate and scheme. Like, he's a raw essence of evil. And then if you want to try and go, like, ham on it, you know, you can. But I don't think we have a Kefka character. You know, the monster's inside. Kind of wish I was joking. They kidnapped the mayor's daughter who is possessed by a banshee. Oh, they're training this banshee-possessed character to be an attack dog? Oh, my. All right. I think it's time to take about a 10-minute break. Attack dog. Yeah, right, TJ? And, well, I'll leave it to you all. I would like your input for those of you out there, whether you're lurking or whatever. I did put down that we would go to Wonder Draft and make a more detailed map of the area that we started last week. If you like this kind of storytelling we're doing and want to keep it up, do you want to go to map making, which we can, and that's fine, because we'll uncover more story as we make a map. Story is everywhere. Or do you want to make like a sub-villain? So like we have the leader overall of the activity, you know, but do we have like the leader of the cultists, not just the leader of the organization, like the higher up, or just the like the enforcer? You know, the muscle, the brute. Or do you want to make like one potent NPC character? Instead of just a villain, we'll focus on an NPC and flesh them out even more. Let me know what you'd like to do. Do you want to make a map, or do you want to make a villain, or do you want to make an NPC? iDragon, thank you very much for the follow. And you know what? If you've been lurking, I hope you've been enjoying the thought and the stimulation. Oh, are you okay, Diadems? Like, do you have like a queasy stomach or something? If it's personal, I'm sorry. I shouldn't ask personal questions like that on stream. But I hope whatever the circumstances are, that you'll be okay.